So, welcome back, everybody. Today, we're interviewing the director for the new PA program at the University of California, San Diego. I think this has actually been a program kind of a long time in coming. So, if you don't mind, just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you started out in your PA career.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the invite. I really appreciate it. And yeah, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I am from Texas originally, from right around McAllen, Texas, southern, or what we call the Rio Grande Valley down there. From Starr County, Texas. I grew up, was born and raised there in Rio Grande City, in Starr County. I went to PA school in the late 90s, so I've been a PA since 1997. I went to the Yale PA, or the Yale Physician Associate program at the School of Medicine there, and graduated. Entered in 95, graduated in 97, and then moved very quickly back to Texas because I definitely wasn't a cold weather person. Moved very quickly back and worked initially as a surgical PA. I did a lot of surgical rotations at Yale because we had so many electives and availability and options. So I really focused on that when I graduated, worked in orthopedic surgery for about a year, and then transitioned also to occupational medicine when I found education. So I totally ran into education totally by accident and by mistake. Didn't think this was going to be a career that I was going to be seeking for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
Um, and I started in academia in 98, actually the year after I graduated, or close to the end of the year. So I started pretty early. I was pretty young and pretty inexperienced, but there was a local PA program in South Texas at the University of Texas at that time called Pan American. Now it's called University of Texas Rio Grande Valley. And I worked at that program for 20 years, 20 whole years that I was there. So it was a nice journey. And I grew up there at that program with my colleagues. Many of them are still there. And I left the university in 2017 after a 20-year stint there. And so I went from assistant professor to associate professor and all the ranks, and later promoted to full professor at the next place that I went to, which I will tell you about in a minute. But I going back to the journey about getting into education, I was just looking for a job. I had a disagreement with my supervising doc in my first orthopedic job. I, just didn't agree with some of the things were happening, and I had lasted long enough. I think it was a pretty challenging job.
Mhm.
And it was one of these headhunter jobs, so I should have known from the beginning that maybe it wasn't going to be the best job. But, I made it work, and it was a decent job for quite a while until it really significantly has some differences with the doc, and decided to quit cold turkey. I literally gave no notice and left I was 24. So I made a decision at that time to leave on a Friday and not come back on Monday. But I finished all my work, didn't leave anything hanging or anything like that. And anyway, then I had some savings. I was just kind of looking around for what to do. Wanted a little bit of a break because I was a little burned out from school and went straight into working. So took a little bit of a 2-month vacation or whatnot. Then it was time to look for a job. And in South Texas at the time, there really wasn't a way to find jobs. It was all word of mouth. And if you weren't a PA student down there at the PA program, which was basically 1 year old when I got down there, they started the program in 96 and I got down there in 97. And so, well, actually, they started in 94, graduated the first class in 96. And so, if you weren't a local PA student, it was kind of hard to find a job because everything was word of mouth. So the first thing that I did was I said, well, I'll go to the PA program. That was where I had taken my PANCE exam because it was 97 was the last year it was offered on paper. And I had taken it at the classroom there where I taught for 20 years. Interestingly enough, is the same place I took the PANCE. And this was before they did all the testing centers that they do now and all that. And so I talked to the program director, who then was my boss for the next 20 years, and I said, hey, look, I'm looking for opportunities. Do you know of any jobs? And he said, yeah, and as a matter of fact, we just had our surgery professor. He just took another job in clinical practice or just went back to Galveston or something like that. And if you're interested, you could teach out the rest of his semester. It was the summer at that time. So there was maybe a month and a half left in the semester. I said, yeah, I'll pick it up and I'll try it out and see. And, I'm a surgical PA. So if you're looking for that, I can definitely make it work and see what happens. And, I just sort of, fake it till you make it, right? That very first, that very first stint, and took the job. And, then they said, and if you like it, he said, you can take the permanent position. after that, and you can apply for it in the fall to be a permanent faculty member if you'd like. I said, okay. And at that time, that program was a satellite of the UTMB program in Galveston. And so their idea was that they were going to go out for, separating from Galveston, and the vision of the program was to have its own accreditation and et cetera. So I said, yeah, I'm on board with that. So anyway, long story short, I got the full-time position in fall as an assistant professor, and then just sort of made my ranks, worked in every position in the program, served every role, learned every duty, sort of cross-trained in through the whole entire thing, including staff roles and things. I mean, I did whatever there was to do, I did it in those 20 years. And then I had a significant life-changing moment in 2016. I had a medical personal problem with my health that led me to be in the hospital for quite a significant amount of time. And after I was released from the McAllen Medical Center, I decided that, was this it in my life? Was I just going to, continue to be a professor there? Was I seeing any? I did see some opportunities for advancement, but I didn't see any coming up very soon. And so I wanted to just make a change, and the only thing tethering me to the valley was my family, my friends, and my house. I had a mortgage. And so I was like, I can't, honestly leave my mortgage, and I can visit people and take a plane to visit. But I'm going to tell you, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, was to leave that area after 20 years and a
Oh, wow.
lifetime living in that comfort. That area of Texas is very special. It's very different from the rest of the state. And,
Mhm.
for people like myself, it's really hard to identify with other parts of the state that aren't the same. Even San Antonio, as Latino as it is and as Hispanic facing as it is,
Mhm.
it's not quite the same as our unique part of South Texas. And so was really difficult. I applied for about 5 jobs. At that time, I was applying for director positions. I felt like I, had a lot of leadership experience that I gained through the Texas Academy of PAs, where I was on the board for 14, 15 years as an elected board member in all of the ranks, again, president, vice president, secretary. I think the only thing I wasn't was treasurer, and I was
Mhm.
director at large for several years, and then
Mhm.
just really got a lot of experience with leadership there and other roles that I did. I really sought out a lot of leadership opportunities in my early career, and so I interviewed everywhere. Lucky for me, I got all the jobs I had interviewed for, so that was really great to possibly have a choice of where I wanted to go. So given the fact that I had choices, like I kind of could be a choosy and picky
Mhm.
about where I wanted to go, not just about the money, but also about, the kind of job that I was after and what I wanted to do and what I was looking to accomplish with my vision as an educator and a leader. And I ended up in Northern Arizona University in Phoenix, Arizona, which is where the
Wow.
PA program is located, right in downtown Phoenix.
Mhm.
I ended up there and stayed there for 5 years, and that was a wonderful journey. Really enjoyed that job, and loved the people that I worked with there. We had, quite a shift change of personnel when I just first landed there. There was a big, apart from, the director transition, there were transitions in other positions in staff and faculty. So once the dust settled after about 6 months or a year or so, we really made some great accomplishments at that program. And along came, 4.5 years later, along came this opportunity here in San Diego that I had no idea that they were even wanting a PA program here. I honestly had never heard about it. I was well connected with California. Always wanted to try to live in San Diego, but
Mhm.
there was never really a good opportunity from the type of work that I do. And Point Loma didn't really speak to me in as far as a
Right.
PA program. So there was really nothing else to look at. But one of my fellow associate deans who was working here at the time sent me a text message. I used to work with her at Apple, or when I was doing some work when consulting with Apple. She sent me a message and she said, "Hey, hi from San Diego and UCSD. You might be interested in this position. Here's the link or whatever." And I didn't even know this. I hadn't even checked because I wasn't looking for jobs. So I hadn't even checked to see if there were jobs out there because I wasn't looking to leave NAU. And so I looked at it and it was a job for this position that I have now. And I jumped on it. I mean, literally, she sent it to me July 1st. And I made the mistake. I read it as if it was due July 7th, but it was
Mhm.
due for people with disabilities or something like that. Was the ADA accommodations were due by July 7th. Otherwise, it was due by like end of August or something.
Mhm.
So I applied by July 4th. So at this time, And this week, 3 years ago, I was applying for this job in 2021. And so I applied. I went through a competitive process. I heard there were quite a few applicants, and so I was lucky enough and blessed enough to get this job. And I started here, and I said to myself, this is definitely going to be a great opportunity, and it'll be a work in progress because I had no idea. I had an idea of the bureaucracy and the layers of things that I would have to consider at an institution like UCSD and in a system like the UC system. But I had no idea the extent of it until we got into, creating a brand new program and a brand new degree offering
Mhm.
from scratch in the UC system is no small feat. So I'm glad that we've been past that, and that therefore has led to this. Now, along the way, apart from education, that's really my education journey and how I got here. But along the way, I've always been a practicing PA. I just had a stint in Arizona. I didn't practice at all in Arizona because I didn't have to with as part of my job, and I didn't really have time to do it either. And so in Texas, I practiced the entire time. Primarily after I got the teaching job, I really couldn't do surgery part-time anymore. So I primarily did part-time primary care family practice that I did. In the evenings, I worked typically 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, or 9 to 5, and then 6 to 10, 11, or 12, depending how many patients I had, almost every evening and every other Saturday morning in family medicine. I worked with a wonderful physician down in South Texas who was great. And I worked with several. So I did moonlight quite a bit. At one point in 2016 when I left, or 2017 when I left, I remember I had 4 clinical jobs going on and my teaching job at the same time. So I was a busy person, trying to make ends meet and save money and all that. And, just trying to live my best life and make life work. That was busy. I worked pediatrics, emergency medicine, urgent care, family medicine, occupational medicine, orthopedic surgery, and yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, those are all the specialties that I was in, in my life and my career
Mhm.
as a PA. What a wonderful ability that we have to be able to move horizontally, laterally from one specialty to the other without any, super special training, et cetera.
Mhm.
So that really benefited me. And when I landed back here in San Diego, this job requires me to see patients. It requires all faculty to see patients. And
Mhm.
so I landed here and sought a family medicine position, or a family medicine faculty appointment, and I was able to get a full professorship here, since I had already reached that at NAU, which is where I was promoted to the highest rank about 2 years before I got here. And so, yeah, that was a little bit of a, they're strict here at UCSD with their faculty appointments. So I really had to fight for that and argue for it, and I'm glad that I did. And so I've been in that rank since I've been here, and I see patients. Right now, I'm on a short sabbatical from seeing patients because we're trying to finish the launch here. We just launched our brand new program 5 weeks ago. We're in week 5 now.
Oh, wow.
So they gave me a small reprieve from seeing patients for a few months just so that I can get that all set up and make sure that it all goes off without a hitch. But I'll be back to seeing patients in around October or so. And it's been a wonderful experience here, getting back into family medicine and getting acquainted with my patients again, well, with patients again.
Mhm.
So that's in a nutshell, a little bit about my journey, both education and PA wise, and how I
Great.
got into it.
Well, that is quite a journey. So, if you can, tell me a little bit about the name of the school, UCSD Atkinson. So, I know
Yeah.
the couple donated, well, let's just say a rather large sum of money. And is there a backstory to that?
Yeah, so the short of it is so this is Richard and Rita Atkinson,
Mhm.
who were both employees here at UCSD many years ago. So in the 90s, early 90s, Dr. Atkinson was the chancellor of UCSD himself, as well as a professor, and his wife was a professor here as well. He went on to become the president of all of the UC system later.
Right.
Um, and so he served as that role for quite a few years as well. So, he has, quite a few, he's a very philanthropic person, has a lot of benefits. And one of those benefits is that he had talked to a group of people that were here way before I was. A gentleman by the name of Judd Laraway, who was a PA, the first PA that UC
Mhm.
SD ever hired. I think you probably met him,
Mhm.
bald guy, very nice gentleman. He helped hire me. He was on the hiring committee that hired me, and he was really one of the initial instigators of the idea, at least of this new idea that sort of started in 2016, 17 to really resurface and boil up. And one of the things that happens here is that either you create a new degree program with state funding or you don't, or you
Mhm.
create it as a startup as a self-supporting program. And interestingly enough, UC Davis, the only other PA program in the system, is self-supporting. It's not state supported, which I never knew until I got my job here.
Mhm.
And so, that was the option that really was the easiest for us to follow here because state supported programs take two plus or even 5, 10 years to support because you got to get legislative support, et cetera. So we went the self-supported route and got that done. And we did that with the money and capability that we were given through the endowment that Doctors Atkinson gave to us. And so we were able to use those as literally as startup funds to
Mhm.
hire faculty initially, hire staff. We did a remodel of this entire suite that we're in right now. So we, built out some space for us to have private offices and a space to sort of live on campus and then communicating with him every once in a while as well, just, to see what his return on his, not investment, on return on his donation,
Mhm.
um, and his philanthropy would be. And he's been so pleased and he's been so wonderful to interact with as we've gone through this. In fact, he came to our very first white coat ceremony a few weeks ago and participated, and we were happy to see him there. His wife passed a few years ago, so she was
Mhm.
not able to attend, of course. But in any event, I'm sure she was there in spirit. And so, yeah, so that's really how we got sort of this seed money, this
Mhm.
startup funding. Judd was one of the initial instigators. He was really poking at a surgeon that he worked with. He was a neurosurgery PA when he started here. And he was poking at, and I can't remember the other name of the physician, of the surgeon physician that he kept saying, we really need a PA program here. We need a PA program. And he was really fighting and fighting and fighting for it, for his vision for this. And he convinced the surgeon who knew Dr. Atkinson pretty well. And so, he talked to Dr. Atkinson about, possibly participating in a philanthropic effort to fund the beginning of the program. And then that sort of spiraled into the feasibility study and a visit to UC Davis to look at a model of another program in the UC. And Dr. Maria Savoya got involved, who was the previous dean of the School of Medicine, the previous vice dean of the School of Medicine for, oh gosh, almost 30 years. And she got involved. She was our medical director up until July 1st, because she just retired. But she was our medical director through the last 2 years as we were building this out and really helped make this and bring this to fruition. So that team kind of put this together with the help also of the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Brenner, who was here prior. And he was replaced by Dr. Carruthers, who has been here for about a year or so, also very effective and has also helped us move through these channels and pathways, very convoluted pathways that we've gone through them to get all of our degree approvals. But that's the short of it. That's the short story of how
Mhm.
we came to be here, the Atkinson Physician Assistant Education Program.
Great.
Mhm.
So, how long is the program?
So we're a 29-month program. In all honesty, we're 28 months and 1 week, but we round up, so it's 29.
Mhm.
But we're really just over 28 weeks by
Okay.
7 days.
Now,
Mhm.
is that split up, year for didactic, year for clinical with a break in between, or?
Yeah, so we've got 15 months of didactic work and 14 months of clinical work. The didactic year has breaks throughout the 15 months, including the holidays, of course, and all of the public holidays or government holidays that we get, school holidays. There is a break in between of about a week, and then, or it might even be 2 weeks. And then there's also during the clinical year, there's a few more breaks. So students actually have like a week off between every block, and a block is 3 rotations, and there's 4 blocks, and so they get about a week off in between each block of 3 rotations. So yeah, there's some built-in time along the continuum up to 29 months.
Okay.
Mhm.
How many students are in the first class, and then what do you anticipate like the full complement to be ultimately?
Yeah, so actually we're quite unique. So we're one of the smaller programs. A lot of new programs are being built these days. It's like back to the old days of when programs were 20, 30 students. So the
Mhm.
initial vision here was when I got here, they visioned that this program would be 20 students for a couple of years and then ramp up to a total of 30 max. And when I came on board, having a lot of experience with budgeting and just finance and things like that and PA education, I didn't really see 20 as being very feasible. Plus, that'd be ultra competitive. So I raised that number to 30 because that made a lot of sense. Plus, the classrooms in this building are primarily suited for 30 people.
Mhm.
So we could fit 30 people comfortably in almost any classroom in this building. So we went for 30, and that's what we submitted to ARC-PA, and we're sticking with 30 at least until we get our full accreditation in 2027 or so.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they put a cap on when you can grow after that. So we can't grow until 5 years after that. So you're looking at, oh gosh, 8, 9 years from now
Mhm.
before we can actually even expand if we wanted to. So at full build out, we have a 6 month overlap with two cohorts. So well, we have a 6 month overlap with one cohort, and with all three cohorts, we have about a 30, 40-day overlap. So at full build out, we're looking at 90 students totally enrolled in the months of January through, well, actually, if I'm being correct, it's in the months of June through October. Once we're at full build out, we'll have all 90 students enrolled at the same time in various capacities. Some will be didactic, some will be clinical, and some what we call super clinical, like getting ready to graduate
Mhm.
clinical. Hmm.
With respect to the rotations, which I know it hasn't started yet, but
Yeah.
um, is it just going to be throughout San Diego County? I mean, I'm from San Diego as well, and I'm thinking San
Yeah.
Diego, going all the way out to El Centro and down to the border and up north to Orange County. But do you envision them going all throughout San Diego County, or what do you have lined up for rotations?
So yeah, we actually have been really blessed with that. We have had not too many issues finding clinical rotations, unlike other programs, which is great. It's really a great advantage of being at such a well-known and large medical center.
Hmm.
So obviously, many of our clinical rotations will come out of the UCSD Health.
Hmm.
And so, for instance, like psychiatry, they don't want us to send any students outside of UCSD psychiatry. So they want all of our students. They're like, send us 3, 4, 5 at a time. It doesn't matter. We want them all. I said, okay, you don't have to beg. It's fine. We'll do that. No problem. So that's just one example. And we're working constantly with other departments here at UCSD. The problem is that there are 140 students in each cohort of
Right,
medical students. So
right.
we also have to watch out for, we have to mitigate where we're there and they're there, and it just adds more volume. And their rotations are really different from the way that our rotations work as PA educators. So we also have a sort of a different teaching model for a clinical year than they do. Especially MS1, MS2. It's not any better or worse, it's just different. And so having to educate people here that that's what we're doing really takes a conversation and meetings and people to get them on board. So we have right now, if I'm being honest, about I would say about 40% of our rotations are UCSD Health currently.
Okay.
The other 60% are outside of UCSD Health. They're, local FQHCs, especially community health centers, are, in the mix there, especially. And then our target counties are the counties of San Diego and Imperial
Hmm.
County. So these are the two southernmost counties in California are our targets. Because UCSD Health just recently acquired El Centro this last summer.
Wow.
Actually, it's not even recently, it's been a year now. And so since we acquired them last summer, we are definitely moving in that direction
Hmm.
very quickly. So we took advantage of that, and in our proposal for our degree, we included what we call clinical concentrations. So students can graduate from our program with concentration using their elective rotations, because we are offering 3 additional elective rotations for students, which is nice to have because we have no shortage of rotations right now. And so one of them is actually, or two of them are in primary care and also rural and border health. And so students who choose to go in those directions, we have more than enough spaces. They have been so accommodating at El Centro, also in Brawley
Hmm.
at Pioneers, which we're working with currently on some negotiations with them to send students there as well. Their PAs out there specifically at their ERs, et cetera, really are calling us night and day to send students over there when we finally have them. And the conversation to send them out there is a lot easier than sending students to, say, Orange County. One,
Hmm.
Orange
Hmm.
County is saturated and
Yep.
inundated with PA programs, and students rotating. So it's difficult to want to send students up there. Plus, we also have San Bernardino, who's also opening about a year behind us. So,
Right.
that's their, I mean, I consider that their territory, and I'm not interested in sort of, getting in people's way.
Hmm.
Um, and the other thing is housing is so expensive in these two counties here that
Hmm.
it's not really realistic to think that we could send a student to pay another $3,000 rent bill in another county and be able to afford it, right? This is expensive as it is. But in Brawley and in El Centro, rent is like six, seven, 800, 900 a month. I mean, anywhere between six and 900. And so right now we're looking for subsidized housing. We're looking for free housing, which, for instance, Brawley Pioneers offers to residents, and even to UCSD residents as well. So, we're looking into those options and other ways for students to find that affordable. We're including it in their financial aid budget so they can at least all do at least one rotation out there. Right now, the ER over there at UCSD Health at El Centro has taken on at least 15 of our students. But as quickly as we started having those conversations about all of these rotations in Imperial County, then we acquired Alvarado and East County over here in the
Yeah, yeah.
college area by SDSU. And so that is coming up very quickly. They're transitioning very fast. In fact, the ER is transitioning in the month of September. And so they will be taking some of our ER students now as well. So we're going to
Mhm.
be able to split them, for instance, in ER. We can send a third to Jacobs, a third to El Centro, and a third to Alvarado, and not even have to send any to Hillcrest at all, where
Mhm.
there's so much construction and so little space for more students. So we're staying out of Hillcrest for the time being until the construction is done, or
Mhm.
at least mostly done. So that really has led to a lot of opportunity that we've had. But we're also constantly looking for rotation opportunities from all of these people that have wrote to us or written to us that want to help us. We have this survey on our website that's called Clinical Partner Survey. And that basically we drive people to that survey to let us know, hey, people write to us all the time by email that they are really wanting to help the program in some way, either by precepting a clinical year or guest lecturing or facilitating or grading OSCEs or something. And so we route them there, and we had no idea. We went recently in there to start to really try to assign people and identify people who are interested and where we can match them up with program needs. And we had over 100 people, 100 responses in the survey of people that really wanted to help us out in some way, shape, or
Mhm.
form. So right now we're in the process of delegating as many of those as we can, vetting them, of course, and seeing, where we can place them and where it makes most sense. And we're really happy to see that. That's a really great problem to have, is so many people interested in helping out and not even seeking money for it. It's just,
Mhm.
giving
Mhm.
back to the community, which is so wonderful. And so we're doing that, and real happy to report that we're having a lot of success, and people come in, and our students are getting to meet so many, a varied amount of PAs.
Wow. So you're with your other stints as director, so at Rio Grande and then NAU.
Mhm.
What do you what do you find now, I guess, unique about this program? Obviously, since you've had so much experience, what
Yeah.
did you take from those that you've been able to implement here already?
Yeah, so I took a little bit of both. I think, right now I'm helping teach a couple of courses that I'm really using concepts that I was using as far back as 2015, 20 years ago at in Texas. And I have to admit, I didn't do a lot. I didn't serve as the leader of the program in Texas. I was close to becoming the leader, but I'd never quite served in that role until I left and went to NAU. But I think from a leadership perspective, I think I took a lot, especially from NAU. I learned a lot from my previous boss in Texas, Mr. Frank Ambrose, and just learned about the way that he does things. And I find myself leading in finance, especially, and in the ways that we handle admissions, leading in many of the ways that he really led us with back then. So I really try to follow in those footsteps. I have my own way, of course, but nonetheless, I really try to follow some of these guidelines that he really showed me about what was important and what mattered in the way that we do our work as leaders. And then from Dr. Rick Dean or Mr. Rick Dean over in Arizona, he founded that program just a few years before I got there. And I was lucky enough to work with him, with the former director whose position I took when I got there. He was still on faculty the entire time I was there, and I was lucky to have him around because it was great to bounce ideas off of the person who actually had the vision for the program in the first place, and that I could still make my own decisions. But also still get some great context and ask about vision and where, the thought process was and whatever it was that was established that I was looking at. So, I really take, my job as a leader here is to be a leader and not as much of a manager. I don't enjoy managing. I enjoy leading. And so a lot of what I did in Arizona that was very satisfying to me there was really brought that program up into where Rick told me, this is the vision, this is what we wanted for this program. We've just had some trouble getting there because we have these blocks and these associations and these people and these committees across the state. And, it's a very NP heavy state. Nothing wrong with that, but there are some
Mhm.
significant areas of the state where it's just not PA friendly. Um, and so working in that dynamic and as kind of making that happen, I really focused my energy on ensuring that I would crack that code, crack that nut, if you will, and get the program into the spaces where we wanted to be in rural healthcare, underserved medicine down there, and really have us very well known in that space. And it worked and it happened. By the time that I got there, we had the most students of any PA program, and there were, at least three at the time when I was there. Now there's like six or seven.
Mhm.
So it blossomed after I left. But at the time, there were three fairly large programs. We were also the only program during the pandemic that actually grew. We added to our class size during the height of the pandemic, which was crazy in many people's eyes, but it was the vision that I walked into, and it was the agreement that I made when I took that job. And so I couldn't back out from it. But we made it happen anyway, and they still have the same class size that I know about right now. But yeah, we were able to set up the largest presence of PA students out in the rural areas of Arizona and those underserved areas. And it was a real success. I was real happy. By the time I left, I had garnered around $400,000 in grant money per year from both state and federal sources to support our rural efforts to ensure that, when I started there, maybe some students would do rural rotations. For the most part, it was just luck of the draw, whatever was available. But by the time I left, I left with every single student required to do a clinical rotation in a rural setting
Wow.
or underserved setting, and preferably rural. So we made it happen, and it was with the help of all of the other teammates that I had, faculty and staff, that really helped me get that on board. But it was no joke, and as far as it really took a vision and leadership to get that done, because you have to knock on a lot of doors and bang on some doors to get your voice heard. And it worked. And so that was, I think, really my best accomplishment. And what did I do? I brought that here as well. I said, this is the same thing I want to do here. My goal here, first and foremost, was to get this program accredited and to get the degree approved, which was extremely a difficult process. But once we got past that, now in the fifth week of our existence with actual students, I've been moving in that direction slowly but surely. And luckily, UCSD is doing all the work for me. They're acquiring places out in the rural areas and in underserved
Wow.
areas. So, it's like we have the same vision or the same trajectory. And I kind of knew about all of this when I got hired here. I did have some intel that was shared with me that was confidential about, possible acquisitions and things that would be
Mhm.
happening in the future that would be beneficial to the program. So it was very good knowledge to have to be able to leverage that to ensure that this program was going to be set up for success, especially where clinical rotations are concerned. That is like the number one issue for most PA programs these days,
Sure.
especially brand new ones, is getting clinical rotations. But we weren't we had no difficulty finding those, which was great. And we continue to it just seems like these rotations just keep landing in our lap
Mhm.
without even asking about it. Just people calling and saying, "Hey, we want to be part of your operation. How can we do it?" Um, and it's wonderful. So because we didn't set up in Arizona, I had to set up a way to pay for preceptors because it's the way way of life in Arizona now. And we were the last ones at NAU to jump on that bandwagon, but we had to. But we were very modest in our payments anyway,
Mhm.
because we're a public institution. But here, I mean, we're expensive enough already. So, we don't have that built into our budget. So anybody who's helping us, really is coming in. gratis and
Hmm.
in kind. And it's definitely repaid in kindness and gratitude on our part. And of course, in, accolades
Hmm.
and CV opportunities and continuing medical education, et cetera. So,
I've been actually kind of really anxious to ask this question. If you can tell me, is how many applicants did you get?
yeah, for our first year, which I thought, I thought because we had a very wonky first year, our timeline was really odd. We extended our start date. We were going to
Right.
originally start in January. We extended it to June because of
Hmm.
our degree approval. And I thought, people aren't going to want to apply here because it's too late. But we had 3,000 applicants last year,
Yeah.
for 30 spots. And this year we reached the 3,000 number in the first month of the of the
I
cycle.
bet. I
And
bet.
so we're very near 5,000 if we aren't over 5,000 already.
Right.
So it's going to be a year, and we're processing them already as fast as we can.
Sure.
Uh, and we'll be interviewing around 100, between 100 and 120 this year, and again for the same 30 spots. And so it was very competitive. I have to say, though, actually our website, just this weekend, it looks a little off on some centering, but there is a graphic, an infographic on our scrolling
Hmm.
page on the home site, on the homepage, that shows you what the first inaugural class looks like if people were interested in looking at who they are, what they look like,
Hmm.
and some of the basic stats. We were really impressed with the work that we did. We run a holistic operation here in our admissions process, and we look at every single bit of the application, no stone left unturned, to ensure that every applicant gets a full view of their full application.
Hmm.
And that's what we did last year. We're doing that this year as well, and it really led to a lot of success in the class that we got. I mean, I've been so impressed with the students that we have in this program this year. They're really smart. They're eager. They're polite. They're great students. And the really thing that I appreciate the most about them is that they're the pioneers. They took a chance on us, especially with such a weird first year and a weird process. They
Hmm.
really have put up with a lot, and they've been very patient with us as we build out, brand new. No one knew how to enroll a PA student here or how to even do this from a there hadn't been a new program here in years.
Hmm.
So we come along and it's like, no one knows how to do any of these things. And so we had to build all of these processes from scratch. And we just tell them, even things like getting students an email address was like, you would think that's easy, but
Right.
if you don't already exist, it's not easy. You have to create that all from scratch. And so,
Hmm.
we spent a lot of time in the last couple of months doing that while they were patiently waiting. And so
Hmm.
we really appreciate that about them, and definitely welcomed with open arms for them to come in. So yeah, this year we're at or around 5,000 already. Maybe we're a little bit over. This was
Hmm.
last week's number. So we're probably a little over that. But yeah, there's definitely no shortage of interest. We're still we have a lot of applicants. People ask me all the time, well, why are you still recruiting? You have enough applicants. It's like, because, it's about representation. It's about getting out there and answering people's questions.
Hmm.
And I think that's still necessary, no matter how many applicants we have, because we want to show that that's our effort. We're a small operation, but we also want to be great at customer service, and we want to make sure people know who we are. And with questions, I always appreciate answering them either myself or someone on the team, so that you get the information straight from the horse's mouth and
Hmm.
not from, somewhere where the information might not be accurate. We also spent a lot of time, we spent about a year building out our website to ensure that we had as much information and as much detail on it as we could,
Hmm.
so that people could self-serve while they're going through there and not have to wait for us to answer their
Hmm.
questions. Our frequently asked question page in the admission section is quite robust,
Hmm.
with a lot of information on it.
What about any scholarship opportunities? Are there any offered through the program?
Yeah, we're building those in. So right now we just have the mandatory scholarship opportunity, which is required by any department, whether you're self-supported or not, or state-supported or not. At NAU, at UCSD, it's called return to aid. So basically, the money that we get from tuition and fees, we have to dump back into a student fund, so the students get some of it. So it lowers the cost of attendance for them a bit, in the form of what the financial aid office calls a scholarship, and every
Hmm.
student gets that, and it's evenly distributed across the 30 students. With our benefactor and our the doctors Atkinson that gave us that endowment. We're looking at, as that matures, we're looking at creating more scholarship opportunities with that
Good.
money as well. We do have to wait because, we used a certain amount of it to build
Hmm.
and set up and start, and then, you use so much of it, so you have to wait till it gains interest and
Hmm.
accrues and all that, and then as it does, we plan to begin to, return that money over in scholarship opportunities for students. So not a whole lot right now. We're trying to shift students because of our concentrations. We're trying to shift students in loan repayment programs, and trying to keep them down here in these counties to work in loan repayment areas like FQHCs and in the
Hmm.
rural counties, so that they can qualify for either National Health Service Corps opportunities or, California SLRP opportunities, student loan repayment opportunities, in both. So we're making sure that they are primed and ready for those programs if they want to take advantage. Not everybody will. Maybe some people might want to work here at UCSD, which isn't qualified to do any of those loan repayments, but, you never know what you might negotiate with your employer. So,
Right.
anything's possible.
Um,
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank you again for taking this time out. I know how busy you are, especially just right into the new class starting, but pretty exciting that you guys finally got this off the ground and going. And there's no question it'll be a successful program going forward. But I appreciate your time and talking to us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and we'll keep in touch.